Hello, and welcome to the Period Press live editions. And this week I have the amazing, incredible, and awesome Charlie Hart with me. Hi, Charlie.
Hi, Samantha. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
I've been really looking forward to this. I know we've had lots of chats about it before, and I've been on your podcast recently as well, Neuro Women Natter. So it's nice to have you over here. So I will hand over to you to introduce yourself, lest I've missed something out.
Okay. I'm Charlie Hart. I'm also known as Ausome Charlie with an AU for autistic. I'm openly autistic and I have ADHD. And I speak about neurodiversity, inclusion, and write about it quite a lot as well. And my background is HR analytics. So I'm now self-employed as a neurodiversity inclusion speaker after escaping a 20-year career in HR analytics. And my pronouns are she, her, or they, them, either. I'm a tomboy. I am non-gender conforming. And yeah, you could say I'm a queer ADHDer because I do like those self-identified labels. And it's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I think labels can be, I don't know, people have mixed opinions. I find them really helpful. My labels behave as like a permission slip for me to be able to advocate for myself and in a way that I wasn't able to do before. I think
Yeah.
as a late diagnosed person, especially, prone to the people pleasing, even if, and self-diagnosis is completely valid, but I just felt like I needed to have that so that I could advocate for myself in the way that I needed.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I find labels
Totally
really
agree.
helpful. Yeah.
I identify as neurodivergent, and to me, that's a self-assigned thing that gives me power and gives me
Yeah.
power in community as well. And
Yeah.
it's not pathological because it comes from the neurodiversity paradigm rather than from the medical model of disability.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. My
Yeah.
favourite label of yours is twirly.
Yeah.
Twirly.
Yes.
Reminds me of Phoebe on Friends when she's like, oh, it's a bit floopy.
Yes, that's exactly it. Oh, my language. I have so twirly. So, for anyone who didn't know, I am also openly autistic, ADHD, dyslexic, and twirly. So it's when my ADHD really flares up and I can just be seen like a whirling dervish, like spinning around. But the problem is if I stay too long in the twirly, it ends up in a spirally, and that only goes downwards
Yeah.
into some sort of meltdown. So but yeah, you're a brilliant speaker. I have seen you speak at several conferences now, and I just always love everything that you say. But I love how you shape your talks, how they're always differing, but sometimes go over things, like, which is nice because we forget things. So it sort of reaffirms things, and you always do it with just the most excellent show skills, comedy, and you just come alive on stage. I really enjoy watching you speak.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love it. I'm in my element on stage. It's
Mm,
something I did a lot as a teenager and then lost my confidence really in my 20s and 30s. So when I discovered neurodiversity and being able to do presentations at work and then doing global online events like Neurodiversity Celebration Week, I realised that I'm still really enthused about being on the stage and performing. And I'm in a
yeah,
band as well. Yeah, in case
yeah,
anyone's watching from our ADHD HR band,
yeah.
I can't say the acronym, I get it muddled up, but our
Uh,
little quirky gang
yeah,
of HR and HR adjacent people who have ADHD, yeah, they
yeah,
will rib me about that.
yeah. Yes, if anyone's not sure, Charlie is in a band. She only mentions it, I don't know, at least twice a day.
An hour, yeah.
Yeah, an hour. But it's
So I
amazing.
wanted to do it all my life and it never happened until I was 48. So now, yeah, I'm living it up.
But it's a cool thing to say, like, by the way, I'm in a band. Like, I
My
would love
band,
to be
yeah.
able to say a cool thing. Um, but I think it's interesting as well, because I have also gone down the path of, I was doing workshops and now I've done a lot more speaking events, but I do remember those horrific moments in secondary school where the teacher was like, Samantha, could you stand up and read out? And
Mm,
suddenly all the oxygen would be sucked out of the room, and my face, my body just felt like it was on fire. And no words came out. And,
yeah.
reading wasn't the easiest on demand like that because of my dyslexia, but I also recognize now my neurodivergence. So for someone that had an absolute fear of speaking in that way, like I am dumbfounded sometimes that I get up on a stage and talk out loud. But it just goes to
No,
show, I
I'm
think.
quite socially anxious myself, but
Yeah,
that's when it comes to mingling and small talk and things like that. So put me on a stage and I'm prepared and I know what I'm talking about, and it's a subject that I'm enthusiastic about, and
yes,
it turns into like a kind of comedy routine but based on knowledge and insights.
yeah.
But being an amateur drama kid is what's helped me to not have that anxiety.
Yeah. I did actually decide to do, we got way off tangent already, but I did decide to do
Yeah.
drama for my GCSEs because I thought in my little brain, I was like, well, I'm not very good at doing those things or public speaking or talking in front of people. So I'll do drama and that will help. And I'm not sure that it did really, because in the drama class I was paired with my secondary school bully, so that didn't go very well.
Oh
Although
no,
I know
I
we
never
sort of
did
had an
anything like
understanding
that.
it. No.
I did like amateur theatre at weekends. So my godmother ran an improv class, and that's
Ah,
one of the safest spaces you can go to if you're neurodivergent and queer or any kind of weird and different, because everybody is.
yeah, yeah. I realise that from conversations I have now, but yeah, I mean, I love it. I mean, I basically get up on a stage and I get to info dump about my favourite subject. So, like, what's not to love about
Yeah.
that?
You do it with star quality and panache as well.
Thank you. But okay, back on to point at least, because it is the period press, and I know that we had a few things that we discussed to talk about, which are interesting. But I'd really like to start, as I do, by just asking, do you remember your first period or the situation or how that happened or anything about it?
Yeah, really clearly, actually. Yeah. So I am both blessed and cursed with one of these really vivid autobiographical memories. So I can see
Ah,
and hear things that have happened to me in vivid detail. And I was quite late, I think. I was quite a late developer. So I was about 14. And I used to occasionally go on holiday with my grandparents. So this was one of those occasions. On my way to Bournemouth, where my great aunt lived, in my grandparents' car, and I knew a little bit about periods. I think I'd had one or two sex education classes at school, and I had like one of those books that are aimed at sort of 12-year-olds that talk you
ah,
through the anatomy and all that stuff. So I knew a little bit. My mum had never mentioned it really, and just like I think she'd said to me, if you ever need them, there's some sanitary towels and tampons in the bathroom cupboard, and that is all she said. So halfway to Bournemouth, and I thought, what's going on? I felt like I'd got really bad stomach cramps, and then felt like I was wetting myself. Stopped at motorway services to go to the toilet, and I thought periods were like runny red blood, but it was more like thicker and more brown. So I really didn't know what was going on, but I was also far too embarrassed and self-conscious to mention it to my
ah.
grandparents. So the whole mini break I was just using like rolled up toilet paper in my pants and not saying anything to anybody about it.
Oh my goodness, that is quite the welcome
Yeah.
to having periods, isn't it?
Yeah, and you see now, like, there's a lot of films and TV programs where it's talked about more openly with quite positive representation of how to have those conversations as a parent. And it just really passed me by. I knew nothing. I was deeply confused.
Yeah, because it isn't often mentioned, I think, as well. I don't even know if it's like widely circulated now, but yeah, periods do like appear this sort of brownie color at the beginning. And I think that must, when they're talked about as being blood and the color of blood, it must be quite like, oh, what's happening? And like even now, I
Yeah,
suspect that it's still a bit blindsiding.
possibly. Yeah. And, I have two teenage daughters, and they were both early developers and started really young, and they're autistic as well. So I tried to be a lot more open about it and have conversations with them that would help them get used to it and know how to deal with it. But it's very difficult, I think, with kind of socially anxious,
Mm.
nervous, autistic kids.
Yeah, and I think that it can be, at least I can kind of experience it as a bit of a sensory overload as well, what with the sort of cramps and everything. It depends how it lands, or like, how the cycle before has been. Like, obviously I'm a massive fan of an advocate for a cyclical tracking and charting. So most of the time I try to manage my energy spoons so that it doesn't become, but sometimes life gets lifey as much as you plan things, and yeah, it can
Yeah.
be sometimes over. I can only, my own body sort of overwhelms me. I think that's not mentioned as much in the autistic community, really.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a sensory, what the hell is going on?
Yeah,
Yeah, it can be really discombobulating. So I
yeah,
really felt for my daughters when they started early, not even in
yeah,
high school yet.
yeah. um and I know you've also had a quite an interesting relationship with your periods as you've gone through life. So tell us a bit about that, because I think it's quite an interesting take, or something, at least not one I've discussed before.
Yeah. I mean, when you first asked me to come on this, I was thinking, why does she want to talk to me? Because I don't really do periods. I've never noticed any PMT or PMS or anything like that. And it's not really something I do. That sounds really bizarre though, because I'm a woman. As far as I know, I'm a normal cisgender woman and I'm not intersex, but a lot of people are and don't know. But I've always had low estrogen all my life. So whatever contraception I use, even if it's just the mini pill, it's always stopped my periods. So
Mm.
I think I was 17 when I first went on Depo-Provera, which is a progesterone only injectable contraception. And I had that because my mother had had thrombosis, and they advise you not to take a normal combined pill usually if you've got thrombosis in the family. So I had Depo-Provera. It completely stopped my periods for years. And
Oh
I only
wow.
came off it when I was trying for a baby. So the only time that I've had periods is when I've been actively trying for a baby or I've just had a baby. And it's not really featured a lot in my life.
No, but is
Quite
it then
cool in a
this?
way because I don't get, how men can be like, if you're upset with them, they can be like, oh, is it PMT or you're on your period? I don't really get that as well. So it's quite cool. But it does mean that when I've been trying for a baby and the periods have come, that it's been even more upsetting than it might be for any other woman that's trying for a baby, because I'm just not used to that experience.
No, and I guess you've got this association with periods and pregnancy kind of being sort of one and
Yeah,
the same experience.
yeah. And I've had a couple of traumatic miscarriages quite close together as well, with a lot of blood loss. So yeah, if I see blood now, I'm like freaking out about it. And in
Yeah,
fact, I had an incident not long ago, not long after we became friends, I think, where I was freaking out and I sent you a bunch of voice notes. And I
yeah.
was thinking that it's the kind of heavy bleed that some of my menopausal friends have warned me about.
Hmm.
And it just turned out to be a shaving cut. So I felt really, really daft when I found that out. But then it's also quite a funny story to tell.
Yeah,
You
but
know,
it just
I'd nicked
goes.
a mole or something.
Yeah, I remember that conversation. But I think that's also quite an indicator of the level of trauma that you've experienced with having a period and miscarriages
Yeah.
for that level of alarm to have happened.
Oh yeah. It was a full on PTSD trigger. So I got out of the shower and then discovered the blood and then WhatsApped my husband who was working downstairs to say, "Can you come and give me a hug because I'm freaking out here?" So I couldn't even phone him or shout down the stairs. I was so triggered. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
ridiculous now looking back on it, but yeah, I get it.
But but it isn't ridiculous because those things they are, they, and especially, and I wonder because of the memory that you have, the biographical memory that you have, in the way that it is, whether it exacerbates your CPTSD.
It does. The fact that I've got a vivid imagination and a vivid, like almost 3D photographic memory means that I'm more prone to PTSD. I'm sure of it. So this is why I describe it as both a blessing and a curse, because it means that I can be a really good storyteller and I can remember things that people have told me, but then it does mean that images get stuck in my head and I can't shake them out. So that
Yeah.
first miscarriage is very much one of those. And I've had to walk through it in a lot of detail and depth with a psychoanalytical, psychodynamic therapist it was.
Yeah. But it is difficult. And, and this is why I thought this conversation was really interesting because I have a very different experience of periods. I've mentioned them before in previous episodes. I don't remember my first period, which really annoys me considering my job now and my career path. Maybe that's why it's the first question that I always ask people. But I've had a relatively unoffensive relationship with my periods. They haven't been, gratefully painful. At best, they were sort of, well, I don't know, mostly just an inconvenience until that my sort of light bulb moment at 38 when I was like, oh, they're really important to know more about, actually. But I think it's really good to have these conversations because there are so many experiences. And I think almost like we say, if you've met one neurodivergent person, you've met one neurodivergent person. Like if you like one person's cycle and period is one person's cycle and period. There are so many different variations of that. And I was on a discovery call with a client the other day, and she said, I've got PCOS. Will I still be able to work with you? And I was like, 100%, because actually, there's out of the hundreds of people that I've spoken, there is only a handful of people, I would say, that just have a regular cycle. It's to the letter. Like most people have something going on: PCOS,
Yeah.
endometriosis, adamant. Blah, blah, that never trips off the tongue. Adenomyosis. There we go.
Oh, I've
Or
never heard of that one.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I had an interesting chat
Yeah.
with Kelly Swingler about her experience of it on LinkedIn the other week. That was interesting. Or fibroids. There are so many
Mhm.
different experiences, and birth control will add another one. But
Yeah.
it is a sensitive subject to touch around, like miscarriage and then that your relationship with periods. But I think it's good in a way to sort of talk around it. I do realise it's quite sensitive,
Yeah.
but also separating, I think it's important to kind of separate your period from that experience in a way, because your periods give you so much information about your internal health and what's going on in your body that it's almost,
Which is hard anyway if you're autistic, because so
yeah,
many of us have interoception issues, which means that we don't pick up cues from our bodies as quickly as we might, or if at all. So we might, for instance, go all day without a drink and then wonder why we've got a massive headache, and it's because we're dehydrated. So I
yeah,
think there's a link between that interoception issue and
mm,
miscarriages as well. It's like my brain hasn't registered that I'm no longer pregnant, so I don't sort of go through what you would normally go through if it was a normal miscarriage. I think there's a strong link, but I don't think any research has been done on that. I think it's mostly anecdotal. So it's important we
Yeah.
keep having these conversations. If we keep talking to each other and get a collective body of anecdotal evidence together, and that's when somebody will research it and we can make things easier.
Yeah, that's so true. And just a mini side quest, because I went to the hospital the other day for a scan. So I've had like cysts. 4 years ago, I had a scan and they said it was a chocolate cyst, nothing to worry about. The subsequent years, they said, oh, it might be endometriosis. This time I've gone, and it's the first time someone said to me, it's endometriosis. And I'm like, okay, so the 4 years of preceding scans when everyone was like umming and ahhing, like no one's ever sort of confirmed that for a start. So great to know. And she said, she talked me through the options, and obviously birth control is not one that I would want to seek. And then she spoke about ablation, and immediately I thought, to surgically remove some of the endometriosis, well, it's probably likely it will come back, but immediately I was like, no, it's probably not that bad. I probably will just leave it. And then I spoke to my friend who's just had a hysterectomy because of her fibroids and endometriosis. She's like, are you mad? No, she's like, get on that waiting list. It will take 18 months to get on the waiting list, by which time it could be prevalent and painful. And she said, and how bad is your scale on pain on a scale of 1 to 10? Because we try to she tries to help me kind of like identify.
I'm so rubbish at that. You've got to know how other people feel pain to answer that question.
And I said,
this is why I gave birth to my first 2 babies on my own, in a maternity ward, but with their father not there, because I don't sort of know how to explain how much pain I'm in. So it went from, oh, you've barely started dilating, to the baby is crowning before anyone noticed.
It's so true. I said, I don't know if I'm a really good judge of like my pain because my tattoos feel like a tickle. So I said, well, sometimes when my ulcerative colitis flares up, that will put pressure on my, on the cysts, I think they're around my ovaries, and sometimes I can't walk. She's like, oh, so that's pretty significant then. And I was like, yeah, I guess so. She's like, get on the list. Get on the list for the thing.
She's right. Yeah, I totally get it when you've got chronic health conditions already.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to make a big deal about another one.
Yeah. But the point is, I think our interoceptive skills are not always on point, and how we process the sort of the subsequent consequences of whatever the scenario has been are very different. And I do think it is something that needs a little bit more, well, a lot more research, let's be honest. And like any kind of neurodivergence
really
of women's health.
It's such a weird phenomenon because my senses when it comes to the outside world, the impact of things like lighting and noise and barometric pressure, if there's a storm brewing, all of that stuff, my clothes, my underwear, all of that stuff for me is, I'm oversensitive. It's hypersensitivity, but stuff from within my body, I'm the opposite.
Yeah, no, I am not great at that. I will literally, my toes will turn purple before I realise that I'm cold, and I will be in pain before the moment I realise I really need the toilet. Especially if I'm more so when I'm working, and I'm doing my happy place down a rabbit hole. But yes, so again, we've tangented. We were going to. But I think it was
we're
relevant.
doing so many neurodivergent meanders here.
Yeah, but I feel like when I have conversations with other neurodivergent people, they're like, it's fine, you can kind of keep up it because you keep up with the rhythm. But sometimes I lose people. But yes, so to say, now, like looking back with what you know now, and obviously we've had conversations about periods. Has your thoughts or feelings changed about them? Do you wish you kind of had a little bit more information previously? Do you think it would have helped? Would it have been interesting? I don't know, just in hindsight.
Yeah. So even basic things like when people talk about Auntie Flo or what is it? Oh yeah, my mum said to me, "Have you come on yet?" once when I was about 14, and I didn't know what she meant. So decoding some of the jargon would be really helpful. But the thing that would have helped me most is in my 20s and 30s when I was going through traumas that were related to periods and pregnancies and miscarriages. If people could have understood that that is traumatic and that I needed psychological support, not just very matter of fact kind of this has happened in a clinical way.
Yeah.
There's an emotional overhead to all this, and it's not being addressed.
No,
The
not at all.
psychological impact.
Yeah, and especially, did you have an awareness of your neurodivergence then? No.
No, I was 42 when I realised I was autistic. It happened
So
quite a long time before that.
so that would have just been a complete,
Head fuck.
a
Yeah.
very bizarre experience with a huge lack of support around it for you, and very painful, and
Yeah.
a lot of
In
confusion around
general, I
that.
knew nothing about the impact of trauma. Nothing
Yeah.
at all. Yeah.
No.
I've only realised that complex trauma is a thing after getting diagnosed with autism and then PTSD.
And I do think that's quite common, I think, for late diagnosed people with complex PTSD, because of a lifetime of masking or trying to fit in. Or for me, I think it's mostly around the fact that when I say black and white thinking, I mean really the difficulty in understanding the subtle nuances in being said being said to me in the words being said to me, and not really understanding people's intentions, and probably being taken advantage of in different scenarios. And I think we're very vulnerable in that way. I do think that is a common experience of late diagnosed people.
I think I don't think I've ever been heavy masking. I don't think I've ever passed for normal, partly because I'm a tomboy and my family are so quirky. And my dad's a folk musician, and I don't do that. I've masked all my life until I realised I was autistic thing. But I do realise that I've had a lot of fiery relationships and misunderstandings and meltdowns that have been followed by periods of shame. And it's that meltdown shame cycle that's really messed up my head, I think.
Yeah, and this touches back on
finding out I'm neurodivergent, realizing about meltdowns and emotional dysregulation and rejection sensitivity, it's helped me to put that back together.
Yeah, 100%. And this touches back to something that you have been talking about prevalently recently, and that is like the neurodivergent stereotyping as well. Because it isn't, we're not all the same. And those stereotypes don't fit. In fact, when you did a LinkedIn post and you listed all the different stereotypes, and I was like,
Me and Sam Warner did that between us.
Yeah, it was so good. But I was like, I tick a little bit from all the boxes. I don't think I do fit into to any of the stereotypes really. But that's the thing about them. I don't think that they fit people really.
No, yeah. And you're quite an enigma, actually, because when people first meet you, I think you give off this vibe of being really friendly, but needing a little bit of help to bring into the conversation. So people could think you were quite shy and retiring and a bit of a wallflower. And then they see you on stage being awesome and epic and full of star quality, and then find out that you go surfing at weekends, and you're just so many different things and very neurosparkly, and definitely don't fit into any of the stereotypes.
I know. I think that's
I hope you
interesting.
don't mind that character analysis.
No, I loved it. And it's true. And I was very much a tomboy. And that's the thing, I love pink. But, it is, going shopping is like drawing. Is it drawing teeth? Not drawing paint. Watching paint. I'm
Blinky.
not good
Yeah.
at those. But yeah, drawing. I really hate it. My partner loves shopping, and I will go shopping with him, and I will stand outside the shop and play my Sudoku. I really don't love the shopping, but I love pink. But I was very much classed a tomboy when I was growing up, so I think that's really interesting. I think that kind of how we're put into boxes. I just think that it meant I wasn't very good at that being a socialized or the social aspects of being a girl, especially in the 90s. Really,
Yeah. Yeah.
they're very
So the
confusing to me.
80s for me, I'm a little bit older than you, and
Yeah,
people might think she's an autistic girl, so she was into horses. Absolutely not. My best friend Lucy Hobbs is into horses, and I'll happily let her info dump about it, but that's
yeah,
never been me. But I was
no,
into taekwondo, playing guitar, bird watching. They're more stereotypical boy kind of hobbies.
yeah, yes, no.
This is a massive tangent
It
we've
is.
surfed down here again.
But I think it's interesting. I did like horses. I just have to say, I do like horses.
I like all animals. Just I wouldn't want to knock them out and ride them and all that. I'd rather
No.
just look at them in a field as I walk past.
Okay, so to bring it back, so I know that you do a lot of work with the LGBTQIA plus space, and I think that's another interesting conversation as well, and I want to have more of these conversations with people who it is their lived experience, but there's been I am very mindful of my language and always have been because social justice, it's not really a surprise that I landed where I did in
Mhm.
my sort of work, but I also have always wanted it to be very inclusive. The space that I create for people, I think periods, either get sort of shrouded in like women's mystery, or you get these like circles that are all a bit like, oh, I don't know really what goes on in them. But I wanted to always, and I have been in those places, and I've had some great experience in those kinds of circles. But for what I wanted to do and how I wanted to present my work, I always wanted to make it very accessible for people to understand, for it to be everyday conversation, for it to be to be
Yes.
able to be integrated. And I've always been really mindful about the language that I use. In everything, all my marketing, all my workshops, I'll always refer to women and people with periods, because not all those people who bleed identify as being a woman, and that is just a
Yes.
reality of the world we live in. And I've been through several iterations. So there's several words that I've heard in my time, and menstruators didn't really sit right. Uterus
Mm.
holders, well, that's not very inclusive because of people who
Proud
have had
owners
like.
of a uterus.
I do think that it is important to recognise spaces, for women and people with periods. I do remember in my training, we had one of our mentors identified as non-binary and said, you know, I am fine that there are spaces that are for women, for cis women, that they say that so that I know that those spaces are not for me, because otherwise I go to them and then I feel
Yeah.
uncomfortable there. I would much
Yeah.
prefer to say that this is a cis space, and that's fine. And I will go and find a space where I feel included, or that there are going to be other people like me in that space, and I will feel safe there. And I thought that was a really interesting point, which is why I've always kind
Yeah.
of led with women and people with periods to kind of identify that both those lived experiences, rather than smushing them into one with menstruators. Um, I would love
Trans
to know your thoughts.
people. Yeah, absolutely. Trans and non-binary people are not generally as awkward and demanding as the small band of very vocal, transphobic, and gender critical people would have you believe. So I don't know any trans people, for instance, who have a problem with the word mother or any other gendered language. it's just good to find ways to be inclusive when you can. It doesn't take anything away from women or cis women. It's just options. So you see things like information leaflets given out in hospitals that have got inclusive language. You see these transphobic people make a big fuss about that, but they tend to be optional, and they're to give to people who are unconventional family setups or
Hmm.
transgender, and nobody's taking anything away from anyone. Inclusion is not a pie. It's fine to bring people in by incorporating inclusive language. So
Hmm.
what I tend to usually say is women and AFABs, but if you're outside of the inclusion sector and the LGBT community, you might not know what AFAB means, but it stands for assigned female at birth. So that basically means someone who appeared to have female anatomy at birth and they were assigned female at birth. But even then, it doesn't recognise that intersex people exist, and that's actually a lot
Hmm.
more common than people realise. So
Hmm.
there are babies born who are not neatly biologically categorised as one gender or another, and the clinicians and the parents have to make a decision about which way they will go, and they may change their minds when they're older. Most intersex people, I think, don't even know, because you wouldn't know if your chromosomes were different. I
No.
barely know what my blood type is, let alone my chromosomal makeup. If I had some internal testes tucked away somewhere, I wouldn't know about it unless I had some medical emergency that brought it to light. So let's add the inclusive language, and it doesn't take anything away from anyone. And I really applaud you for doing that.
Ah.
A really easy way to do it would be to say anyone with periods, or anyone who's pregnant, or
Mm.
pregnant people. Yeah, that's easy anyway. But anyone with a period, anyone with a menstrual cycle, it's really
Yeah.
easy to do. And I would urge you to get a trans man and
Yeah.
possibly a non-binary AFAB person to come on and speak about their experiences as well, because they can experience a lot of those gender inequalities when it comes to healthcare, and quite often don't find any sanitary products in the toilets that they're supposed to use as well.
Yeah, I said this till I'm blue in the face. Like, if you're going to make accommodations at work for people who bleed, which is I think also another term to use, but I get a lot of kickback on the terms. I've even had feedback in workshops that one participant decided to write back a feedback to me and told me that as a woman of um, she was as a feminist, sorry, of her age. My workshop was offensive, is what she said to me,
Good. No,
because I spoke,
it's not for her.
you know,
She's not a
she,
feminist, okay? My take
no.
on that is anyone who thinks that women fit into a really neat box is not a feminist. They are upholding the patriarchy. And if somebody like that gives me negative feedback, and it has happened, I
Hmm.
don't really care. All engagement is good engagement, and they're just
Yeah,
making themselves look pathetic.
yeah, it's true. She did decide to privately email me this, but I was like, oh, good. But don't you worry, I screenshot that, and I didn't put her name, of course. But I think it's interesting, the pushback that I get, like how so offended people are because I dare to say that people have periods,
Mm.
and my language is very much about, making spaces for every body, as in not just everybody, but I like to
Yeah.
separate them, for making space for every body. I think it's so important. And yes, going back to what I was saying about accommodations, this is a hill I will die on. You need to have sanitary disposal bins in all the toilets, because not
Yes.
only to support like trans employees, but also, and it's the same for for all inclusion, for any measures made for inclusion purposes, when you serve one group, you benefit the whole. Because it was something my dad said to me, because he's very he passionately supports what I do. He even came to a conference once, and he put his hand. It was when the BSI launched their menopause, the menstruation standards into the menopause, and I went to the conference they had, and my dad was standing up, and he was like, I would like to speak. He was the only man in the room. And he said, because he used to
There should be
work
more
with,
men at these things.
yeah,
They need to understand.
they do. But my dad used to work in the building construction industry. And yeah, he stood up and he was like, what are you doing to support women on building sites? Because he said, I know that they, just get told to like deal with it and to man up, and they have to deal with, these horrible toilets. And I was like, you go, Dad. I was like, it was amazing. But yeah,
Brilliant.
anyway. But he also has suffered with a prostate cancer. And one of the things that he said to me, which really made me think about this, is that actually, if you are a man with prostate cancer, there is a lot of there are dressings and medical waste that you need to be able to dispose of discreetly and with dignity.
Yes.
And so those bins also provide that for anyone struggling with prostate cancer. So it's just another great example of how, when you do things for one minority group, it actually benefits the whole in ways that you don't think about all the time. So yes, products and
Absolutely.
disposal in
I'm
all
a
toilets.
huge advocate for universal design principles and accessibility, universal accessibility. It doesn't disadvantage anybody, it helps everybody.
Yeah,
so I really don't understand the so-called feminists. They're the TERFs that think that being nice and inclusive and to trans and non-binary people, and just like making sure that every human's basic needs are met, is somehow taking things away from women, from cis women. I just don't get it. I can't get my head around it.
No, I don't either.
I don't want them coming into the comments and explaining it to me either, though, because frankly, I don't think they have a leg to stand on. I think they just haven't thought it through.
No, and I do think it is important to just, and I will keep saying it, I will keep using my language and keep making spaces that, that include everybody, whether they have a period, used to have a period, want to have a period. That my work and what I do is for them. And I think that's really important, that we keep having we've now, conversation about periods are more open, but we need to take it further about how we're making that inclusive for everyone, how everyone's being included in that conversation. And I do think there is a lack of representation and information for the trans community in that conversation. So yeah,
absolutely.
I feel myself.
Keep going.
I feel myself going on a tangent, but yes, I do want to have, like, other people having these conversations. If you're listening and you think I want to have this conversation, do reach out and contact me, because this can be a difficult subject, sensitive subject, but definitely one that's worthwhile having, I think.
I'll send you some recommendations as well for people I think would really add a useful perspective.
Thank you. So we've gone all around the houses with this conversation.
Yeah,
As I thought we would.
An hour?
Yeah. Is there, I don't know, is there anything that sort of that you wanted to say that we didn't get to touch on?
I don't think so. I mean, just the other thing with me, because I have like very light or no periods at all, and my contraception has generally stopped them, and I now have a Mirena coil, so that completely stops it. I have no way of knowing when I'm in perimenopause or menopause, and that's quite an issue for me as well. So if anybody can cast any light on that, because I'm getting nowhere with the doctors, and it's very difficult to diagnose menopause because even the blood tests are not that accurate. It's another area I think you'll naturally get more and more involved in as you get older yourself, I think. So
Yeah,
it's another aspect that's worth looking into.
it's difficult to know because, yeah, with the coil especially, that's going to mask a lot of the symptoms
Yeah,
and
it
the
basically gives you half of the HRT.
yeah. So that is a bit more difficult to recognize. And I have had conversations with people who are in a similar situation with the coil as well and trying to identify menopause. I mean, yeah, I think there is only like anecdotal evidence to support any theories. I think it's important for more people to have that kind of conversation as well. You know, you could
Yeah,
go by averages, understanding the sort of average age of well, it's perimenopause really, because menopause is, you know, your last period. So it's kind of trying to identify where you are in that. I think lots of people will have lots of different experiences. I did have the
yeah.
Mirena,
I can't even
and
ask my mum because my mum had a hysterectomy quite young
oh,
due to fibroids, ovary fibroids. So
that is what I was going to say because
yeah,
it's off our menopause will often follow a similar pattern to our parents. So yeah, that is difficult if your mum didn't go through a sort of
yeah.
a natural menopause.
It doesn't really matter to me that much, except that when I was going through it before my ADHD diagnosis and I started to
Mhm,
get more forgetful and have more working memory issues, all of my
mhm.
executive functioning became harder to cope
Yeah,
with. And I didn't know I had ADHD yet. I was thinking it's all to do with PTSD and grief, but then it could
mhm.
have been menopause.
Yeah, that is what I have noticed as the further I get in at 44 now, the further I get into perimenopause, the more I've noticed it flare. I think my ADHD, because of like different executive functioning, brain fog, or maybe the menopause symptoms are that I experience are more closely linked to my ADHD trait. Yeah, it's difficult. I don't know, being ADHD.
Fascinating
Yeah,
scientific thing around dopamine reuptake
yeah.
and other hormones going on that can inhibit that more, I think. So I'm not a
Yeah,
scientist, but yeah, it's very complicated. But they basically exacerbate each other, I reckon.
yeah.
It'd just be good to know what it is.
I've read accounts from people saying that, you know, in their 50s, you know, they've been on the coil, they have the coil out, you know, in their 50s, and then they return to having periods. And one account I read, she had periods into her 60s. So I mean, it's really hard to tell
Mm,
without sort of removing it. I think looking at sort of different symptoms and how they impact neurodivergent traits would be a little bit of a tell if there are any. Because even with the coil, when I had it, I had 3 rounds in my sort of 20s and 30s, and I did definitely notice that it was not very pronounced, but there was a PMSy type time but it was a bit sporadic. But yeah, it's difficult to
yeah.
pinpoint. So yeah,
I
again,
mean,
if
my
anyone's
my
got
mood's so
a story,
volatile. I don't think I'd ever recognise
yeah.
PMS or yeah.
Okay. So just to wrap up, where can people find you? Is there anything you're doing at the moment that you want people to know about? Or yes,
I'm always doing stuff.
yeah, you are.
Yeah. If you join the Evolving HR app, you would
Yes.
see a lot of the events I'm at because I try and add them to that. But I'm also, this weekend, I'm speaking at the Professional Speaking Association Summit, the Speaking Business Summit.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm all excited today. I'm in the middle of packing for that. But I'm constantly making video content and writing, and you can find all that through my website or on my Substack, or LinkedIn is my biggest platform. But anywhere you want to find me, it's always Ausome Charlie with an AU for autistic.
Yeah, amazing. And yeah, I'm just going to give Evolving HR a shameless plug. It's a wonderful community. Good reminder. Um, yes, come to the conference and also get in the Heartbeat community because it is free and it is full of like incredible. I call us the others. the
We're the trailblazers of the HR and HR adjacent
yeah,
industry. Yeah, and you'll
yeah,
find loads of really good free content there. Some of
yeah,
my best work I put there for free, and anyone can access it for free. I
yeah.
must be mental.
Yeah, but I do love the space. It's full of very much like-minded people. Lots of people that have felt othered for sure, and othered adjacent.
Yeah,
So yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me, Charlie. It's just been a brilliant conversation, as I knew it would. And yes, I will speak to you all next episode.
thank you for having me. And yeah,
Thanks.
catch you
Bye.
soon. Bye.